12:30.
Now with the latest news in Northern Ireland, it's UTV Live with Paul Clark and Sarah Clark.
Hello, welcome. You're watching UTV Live at 6.
Good evening. These are the stories making the headlines.
Liz Truss will be the new Prime Minister, and now she's under pressure to tackle soaring energy costs and help get Stormont back up and running.
And what we need to see now is a change of tact, a change of policy, a change of approach. What we now need to see is the restoration of an executive.
The Prime Minister must continue to tackle the consequences of the protocol because we want to see that dealt with decisively.
As the cost of living crisis bites and hundreds of jobs are lost in the takeaway industry, we hear from one family-run business who says they will have to close their doors.
We've been trying to get the grips with this, and we're not able to do it. The whole family we can't survive like this.
And the Garda Commissioner says the violent deaths of 3 siblings in Tala is one of the worst cases he has come across.
Also tonight, memories of Mother Teresa as we look back at her legacy here 25 years after her death.
And it's going to stay unsettled this week with sunshine and showers throughout. I'll have the full forecast later in the programme.
Liz Truss has been confirmed as the next Prime Minister after a lengthy contest against Rishi Sunak. The new Conservative leader will visit the Queen tomorrow before officially entering Downing Street, where she already faces significant problems, including dealing with the cost of living crisis.
The leaders of Sinn Féin and the DUP have already requested to meet Ms Truss, who must also deal with the Northern Ireland Protocol and get Stormont back up and running. We'll hear from our political editor, Tracy McGee, in London shortly. But first, here's our political correspondent, Vicky Hawthorne.
Liz Truss is elected as the leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. We'll come up on stage.
In the end, the Conservative Party leadership contest delivered no surprises. The front-runner throughout, Liz Truss will replace Boris Johnson as the next Prime Minister. Her victory speech had few surprises either.
During this leadership campaign, I campaigned as a Conservative and I will govern as a Conservative. Because, my friends, I know that we will deliver, we will deliver, and we will deliver.
Belfast street art has already been updated to reflect the result. The Northern Ireland Protocol and the lack of a functioning executive are now among the serious problems Liz Truss must wrestle with. There are calls for the incoming Prime Minister to listen to all the political parties at Stormont.
Liz Truss has an opportunity now to come in and to stop pandering to that from the DUP, to stop pandering to the approach which is damaging our ability to be able to help people through the cost of living crisis. So I look towards an urgent meeting with the new British Prime Minister, but my point will be very clear to her, which is that we need an executive up and running now. We need the outcome of the election to be respected. We need ways in which we can help people through the cost of living crisis, and the Tories haven't done enough to date, and now is the time for them to act.
For Stormont to be restored, she has to be open to reform of the institutions, and she also has to indicate that she's not just going to follow the interests of one political party and one section of the community. She has to give a very clear message that she will be the Prime Minister for all, and she will give proper regard to all voices and viewpoints.
She has to put time, effort and energy into Northern Ireland, which has been neglected. They need to find solutions, and those solutions must help us get our executive back up and running again, because every single day we do not have an executive, our people are suffering.
The Stormont opposition party wants the Prime Minister to start negotiations with the EU on the protocol and a plan for dealing with energy costs.
But what she has to do immediately is recognise that there's an emergency in terms of people's household bills, and she needs to act urgently, and she should not be allowing big oil and gas companies to get away with massive profiteering during this crisis.
All the political parties here want the new Prime Minister to take immediate action to help people manage the spiralling increase in the cost of living. Unionists want a commitment that any promises made to help households in Great Britain will also be made available to households in Northern Ireland. The DUP, though, in particular, is holding out for assurances and action to fix the protocol before it commits to returning to Stormont.
So we will be saying to the Prime Minister that's why action is needed. That's why we need to see this legislation going through Parliament, and if there is to be renewed negotiation with the EU, then the Prime Minister needs to be very clear that for the institutions to be restored, decisive action is required to remove the barriers to trade and to respect the integrity of the UK internal market.
Liz Truss may have won the leadership fight, but there's no time to celebrate the victory. New battles lie ahead. Vicky Hawthorne, UTV Live, Stormont.
So what do people here think of the incoming PM? Do they care? And if so, what do they care about? I went to one street in Belfast which shares the name of one of the most iconic addresses in the world to find out. It may be almost 500 miles from Downing Street in London and look absolutely nothing like it. But people round the corner from this namesake street in the Shankill weren't short of an opinion on the new PM and politicians in general.
They're all cowboys. They're only interested in putting it in their pocket.
I think most of the MPs and all now and the Conservative Party, all of them, they're all the same. You know, I don't think you can trust any of them, really.
And what do you think should be top of her priority list when she gets into office?
We're trying to keep inflation down. It's about the cost of living at the minute. So it is. It's really getting bad, you know.
Boris led everybody up the garden path, unfortunately. And hopefully Liz Truss doesn't, but I wouldn't hold a terrible lot of hope with her, to be quite honest.
And what would your message be to her as she starts her tenure in that role?
Well, regarding Northern Ireland, I would just like her to step in here. I know she has promised to sort out the protocol, but again, you know, is our problems all to do with the protocol? I don't think so.
As long as she looks after the panthers, everything will be all right.
And what about the protocol? How important is that for people here?
I don't know much about the protocol, honestly. You know, but them on Jeffrey Dawson, he'd do a good job. And I was going to keep out there flying high as the main point.
Well, let's cross live now to Westminster and join our political editor. Tracy, no shock, but it wasn't a landslide for Liz Truss, was it?
That's right. It wasn't an upset. The polls had made her the favourite against Rishi Sunak from this contest began. But you're right, the nature of the win was something of a surprise. She got 57%. Now, that's the lowest result in any one of these contests since they began electing Conservative leaders in this way. And don't forget, Liz Truss was not the favourite with her MP. She wasn't their first choice. She wasn't even their second choice. Now, does it matter? Well, I would say Team Truss would say no. A win is a win, but it could become an issue down the line. That's because, take something like the Northern Ireland Protocol. Liz Truss knows that she's facing a showdown with the House of Lords in October when the controversial Northern Ireland Protocol bill goes to be debated there. Now, say they try to amend it too much, she's going to need the support of her party to face that down. If there is renewed negotiations with the EU this month, as we are expecting, would she have the bandwidth to make the compromises that we see so often in a talks process? So it's not an issue right now, but it could become an issue in the future.
How do you expect her to deal with the cost of living crisis?
Absolutely. It's top of her list. We're expecting an announcement on Thursday, and the speculation is that it could be a package of measures totalling tens of billions of pounds, perhaps freezing energy bills. But there's a complication for Northern Ireland. If the measures take the form of tax cuts or increases to benefit, that's no problem. That can be legislated for here in Westminster. But if it is a pot of money that is shared out among the devolved nations, a so-called Barnett consequential, well, we don't have an executive. And that means that there could be money sitting in Stormont's bank account, but there'll be no way to get it out of the bank account and into people's pockets. We'll have to wait till Thursday to find out what is announced.
When do you expect we will know who the next Northern Ireland Secretary will be?
Well, it's up in the air. I can tell you who doesn't want the job. The speculation is that the job was offered to Sajid Javid, Penny Mordaunt, Ian Duncan Smith, and they've all turned it down. The one politician who has been interested in the job, Conor Burns, the current Northern Ireland Minister, well, there's no chatter around his name at the moment, so it's not clear who's going to get it. What I can tell you is we'll know by Wednesday morning. That's when Liz Truss' cabinet is due to meet.
Tracy McGee, thank you very much. Well, our View from Stormont returns tonight, and we'll be hearing more from Tracy about what the new Prime Minister will mean for Northern Ireland. Plus, we'll be joined by Kevin Doyle from Dublin and Suzanne Lynch from Brussels. We're also joined by senior figures from the three main parties here, and Professor Peter Sherlow and Alison Morris will round up the day's events. That's View from Stormont tonight at 10 to 11 here on UTV.
Well, as we've been hearing, dealing with soaring energy costs will be one of the biggest challenges facing the new Prime Minister. And tonight, there's a warning that half of takeaway businesses here could be forced to close.